Hi, everyone. A very good evening to all. Hope everyone is doing well. In today's session, I think if you could start sharing your screen, then it'll be more. Yeah. So, in today's session, we'll be learning about how do you make it into consulting. We'll divide this session into into four sections. All right. And first, we'll try to understand the definition of consulting and what behavior attributes one needs in order to develop, in order to be in this profession. Second, we'll try to understand and break down what are the simple forms that come under consulting. Then third and the most important aspect, I would say, that is equally important for freshers like you guys and experienced people alike, the strategy you need in order to crack the interviews, the case study interviews that happen. And finally, we'll be finishing on a crisp and interesting note of the step-by-step process of what do consultants do on a daily basis. So I hope you guys are ready. This is going to be a really engaging session. I'm going to be asking you a few questions as well, and hopefully you'll be able to answer them with the best of your efforts. So let's begin. Yeah. So consulting is, you can say, one of the professions that can help you survive in a tough economy, like how it is happening right now. And this is because many companies are constantly seeking help, constantly seeking for consultants in order to assist them with their temporary projects while they want to cut down on their cost that a full-time employee would cost. So there are some businesses that have an urgent need for consultants right away, and therefore you should not wait any longer if you've been considering to break into this industry. So when we go by this definition, consulting is a practice of offering third party, also known as a client, with expertise on a particular subject of expertise or in exchange for a certain amount of fee that you'll be taking to give them that consultation. So consulting services usually involve either the implementation or advisory services. You're advising them. So every consultant is required to take an unbiased and independent stand on any issue that they are having. So we'll try to understand what are the different types of consulting, you can say consulting careers that are there. The consulting industry is one of the most and the widest in the market in the professional industry services. When it comes to consulting, there are six primary types of consultant in this consulting industry, and these include first being strategy consulting. So these are consulting who are at the highest level in their consulting industry. They have been there for a long time. They know what goes on behind the scenes, and they mostly concentrate on strategic topics like organization and corporate strategy. What are the functions that go on in the strategy, economic policies that are there for the government policies. So these strategy consultants do the work that are assigned by their senior managers or directors in the company. When we come on to management consulting, so these are also known as the organizational or the business advisors, and they focus on different topics of the organization's strategy and the elements in the management of that organization. So these management consultants are used for various services that fall under the human resources consulting, operations consulting, strategy consulting, that some of them will be discussing later. So then we move on to operations consulting. So these are consultants which will help you to improve the performance of the operations that happen within a company. So their consulting services would vary from hands-on implementation in order to support the advisory services that are provided by the management consultant for both primary and the secondary. Then we move on to financial advisory consultants. And I hear a lot about it that there is a confusion between what are management consultants, what are operations consultants, what are financial advisory consultants. But there is a very thin line and they all work together for most of them. So these consultants address the questions related to the financial capabilities, and in some scenarios, they also address the analytics capability of an organization. So consultants who fall into this segment would be real estate consultants, mergers and acquisition consultants, corporate finance consultants, tax and risk management consultants, as well as forensic services. So then we move on to human resources consultants, and as the name suggests, HR consultants assist you assist their clients with questions related to any human capital there is in the organization. They also assist in streamlining the performance of the human resources department that is there. The main agenda is organizational change that happens, learning and development within the people of the organization, terms of employment that is there, that any change in management and talent management. And finally, IT consultants. So the IT consultants concentrate on assisting their clients in the development and the application of the information technology in their organization. So these consultants focus in the IT landscape as opposed to the normal IT employees. So they focus on specific applications that could help accelerate or aid their client in their business. So they provide that. So if you're in this business, it's easier to hire an IT consultant if you're aware of those skills. So when you become a consultant, regardless of whether you start working as a consulting employee or you have your own business even, you will get various job opportunities that assist you to expand your experience, knowledge, as well as your professional network. So professionalism comes in handy as a consultant. You should always keep the relationship with your client at a professional level. You need to have well, I wouldn't say it like that, but you need to have expertise in most of the fields that you're interested in, whether it is retail, whether it is banking and financial services, whether it is chemical industry. So you need to study, learn, and a client will approach you as a consultant because of the following reasons: that you have more knowledge in that, so that gives you an upper hand in the industry, because the client doesn't have the time needed to understand the projects, to understand the field. So they would come to you in order to understand that. You should always remain updated about industries by reading newspapers, magazines, journals that are there, as well as networking with the people and discussing and debating with them what are the aspects or what are the currents happening in the industry, within the industry, and even outside it. How does it impact the industry? Lastly, you should be applying these theory that you're understanding, your networking, your reading to practice. You need to solve and understand how and why it is happening. And you need to possess the skills that are necessary in order to do that. Judgment, time management, of course, that is there for all industries. You need to be a team player. You need to know how to work in a team. You need to know how to assist and aid your fellow colleagues. How do you help yourself in understanding, I would say, and understanding their needs? And you need to have good listening skills, and this is a very underrated skill, I would say. So good listening skills, you need to understand and learn what your client needs. You need to get their problem by listening to them well, rather than putting your perspective into place. And last but not the least, of course, the most important quality is you need to have excellent communication skills. And that is a need for every consultant out there, right? You need to possess excellent written and communication skills. Many people view consultants as the experts in their subject matter. And therefore, you should always ensure that you communicate your opinions effectively and towards the end. You do not slack off during your entire period. So that you'll be learning later. Right. So all successful people in the consultant industry agree that it is vital for all new entrants in the industry to equip themselves with the relevant consulting skills and expertise. So one of the best ways to gain the necessary knowledge in order to equip yourself to be the subject matter expert, as they would say, is by acquiring an MBA or some of the credible financial certifications and all that is there that is relevant to your specific industry. Here, I'll be talking majorly about the banking and financial services and the management consulting. So I would be referring to MBA and any credible financial certifications that are there. So you should understand that these certifications or an MBA would be an added advantage to you. However, you should understand that doing this is not a prerequisite, of course, for finding a consulting job. It helps grease the wheels in your direction, and also does not guarantee you. So, but of course, they can make you a potential candidate for this career. So the main reason behind this is that you get to possess some of the necessary skills like communication, management, leadership, problem solving, and working under stress or working under pressure amongst others. So you may possess all the necessary qualifications, like I'd mentioned before, but you can always fail to be noticed particularly, and that is not your fault. If you do do not present it effectively. So to do that, you need to have a very strong cover letter. You need to have a very strong resume in place. For your resume to stand out, it must start with your relevant experience that is there as per the job qualification on the first page, as well as your experience and any quantifiable achievements that you have, that you need to highlight. You must you must note that. So if you want your potential employer to notice you, then you must express all your accomplishments related to this industries, something that is relevant in your college time, some societies that you participated in, some extracurricular habits that you had, some debating societies that were there that possess, that show that you have strong communication skills, effective team player that you are, that you may must show in your cover letter and in your resume. Therefore, you should put that in mind that a carefully written cover letter as well is very important than any other document you must present to your employer, including the resume, of course. So these are some of the key highlights that you need to have in order to have the right resume and the right cover letter for the job. All right. If you guys have any doubt up till now, just keep noting it down. When we have the Q&A session, you can go ahead and ask this. So as a new consultant that is entering into the industry, it is important for you to get to know how the professional consulting and the job hunting process works. So when looking for an opportunity in this field, it is important to ensure that you explore all the available options that are out there, including online platforms like Zuno itself. So in addition, you really need to prepare for the interview process, as there is where you will get the opportunity to convince your employer why he or she should hire you. Therefore, you will need to be prepared for some answers, questions that refer to your personality, some of the previous experience back in college, back in school that you had, that is there on your resume. Your interviewer might be asking you some questions to test your communication and problem solving skills. In addition, you should be prepared to answer case study questions that we'll be doing ahead in this session. And as your interviewer will be interested to know how you can handle certain situations. As as you get to the end of this session, you'll understand that consulting is a very time sensitive and analytical, and can be quite stressful if you're not adept at what you are trying to present or what you're trying to approach. So you need to be quick, you need to be I can say you need to be aware of what is going on, and you need to be smart about how you answer your questions. So I guess we can move on to the next slide, and that's all about the job hunting and the interview process. Sure. So it is important to understand that you must network with the right people in the consulting industry if you want to break in this sector. Mostly networking comprises of you contacting people from your family or friends, or even on LinkedIn or other platforms that are there, acquaintances that you have, or you meet someone at a workshop, or you, for example, for this workshop, if you're meeting me, you come ahead and ask me. That also goes a long way. So consulting clubs are there, career fairs are there, back in your college you have, even online sessions are there. So do network with the right people for the right career field that you want, and in this case consulting. So do network and understand what goes on behind the scene, and that goes a long way. That is, I believe, in addition to all that we'll be learning today, that is one of the most important tasks that you need to do. So of course, it goes unsaid that landing an internship in a consulting firm is one of the best ways to join the consulting industry. So getting an internship at a consulting company can assist you in many ways. So you get the opportunity to learn about the lifestyle and what it takes and means to be a consultant. You can be lucky and even get a full-time offer for a job until your internship ends. So I guess that's about it. Anything else you want, you guys can note it down and let me know later. So we can move on to the next slide. So we have come to the crux of why you're here in this session today, how to master and how to crack case study interviews, I would say. And I would say that even experienced individuals up till now who have had 10, 20 years of experience, even they sometimes get a little cloudy about this topic, because this is a very vast topic. You can go on and on and on and understand this, try to solve questions, but it is an endless goal. And sometimes you do get disappointed when you're not able to crack something. So even before we started, I must let you know that there will be questions you might not have answers to, but do not fret. With time, with learning and understanding more questions, you'll be able to get ahead. At least that is what I tried to do, and that did help me. So it might also help you. So, so the main objective of a case interview is to give you an opportunity to prove to your interviewer that what you would do in a case if you were hired for a particular case that is there, and given a task to do that immediately. So when it comes to consulting jobs, there are also case studies where you are required to solve a particular case. And these questions at times tend to be tricky, and you must know how to answer them. What is the approach? There are a lot of formulas in place that you need to have in hand. Like, for example, if I ask you something regarding let's just say cost, then you need to know the formula. You need to have it on your tips that what is the formula for cost, then you can quickly go on ahead to. So yes, that comes with practice, as I'd mentioned. So you're required to solve particular cases then, and some of the tips that can help you in understanding such questions will be learning that ahead. So can we move on to the next slide? So let's understand something called as guesstimates that you might be aware of if you've already given any interviews, or if you've already been a part of any, I would say, any kind of consulting club, then you would be aware of what are guesstimates. So guesstimates are basically questions, guess questions in interviews that are asked to the candidate in order to understand uh, that on the basis of limited information, what can you gain out of it? All right, on the basis of very limited information, what answers can you come out with? So it is a very basic attribute of questions, and there are few steps involved in order to answer them. So I would say the first steps goes into you clarify what are the unclear terms that you have. If there is a question posed and you're unclear of what is there or something that requires more clarification, you go ahead and ask that. Then you have to break down that question into simple aspects. For example, 3 to 5 uh, yeah, just stay there. Yeah, easy to estimate questions, you try to break it down, and then you go ahead. No, Tulika, could you go move to the back to the slide that we have it? No, please go back. I'll let you know when you need to. Yeah, here, I'll let you know when you need to move ahead. All right, don't fret. So then you would need to estimate each piece using math and background knowledge. So you need to consolidate pieces. So let's do this with an example. All right, let's do it together. So let's assume that we need to understand the market size, the smartphone market size in India. All right. So if I ask you this question, so you would need to ask me, you need to ask yourself first and then to me, what is a smartphone? There are different kinds of smartphone. Then what is the unit of measurement? What would be the time frame you need in order to understand and measure this market size? And at which point in time is this market size measured? So then we could break it down into what are the number of smartphones sold to the end customers into 4 segments. For example, the size of the population we can determine the percentage of the mobile phone owners that are there within this particular population. For example, 1.3 billion, then we have a specific population that uses these mobile phones, and the percentage of smartphone owners within this mobile phone, and they might be the button phones, there are smart. So who are the ones that are using the smart? So the average lifespan of these smartphones that are there in India. So to make the solution more simplified, we might assume that the growth of the market will not be included. So I graduated in economics, and we always used to have some assumptions in place, and that also helps in consulting. So you need to assume that the growth of the market, let's say it's stable, we take it as static, or it's not moving, and the smartphone market price is also saturated. So you would have to break it down into different pieces. You would need to solve each of these questions in your head carefully. You might also use a pen and paper. You always need to keep that in hand when you go to an interview, irrespective of what industry you need to go into. So you broke down it into different questions, then you start answering them in your head and try to put it down on the paper. So then post that, you need to do quick mental maths. And of course, in order to uh, estimate some of these questions, you need to know what is the current stats that are there, the current population, the current smartphone users in India. You do need to have a quick update on that. And there are a lot of books, there are a lot of websites that offer you practice on how do you solve guesstimates. And you can always be up to date with what are the current statistics. And you might even, the interviewer might not even know what is the exact number of smartphone users or some exact number of some other variable that is there, and you might actually surprise them. So quick mental math, you would require that. And if your math is a little slow, you might bore the interview. So do be quick at responding, do be quick at doing the math in your head and doing the math on paper. So you do need to practice that. You do need to have a good quantitative aptitude. So nevertheless, don't rush it. Never rush it, because you might end up on the wrong path. And the approach you try to answer it to your interviewer, that might go wrong and that might look bad on your behalf. So I would say take it slow, but not too slow. So now we can move on to the next slide. Yeah. So this I wanted to bring to your notice, that all throughout this interview, you see what we did, right? We identified the objective of a specific question. So identifying the objective can really help you ace the question. When we're saying smartphones in India, there's so many variables that goes on behind the scenes. There's not just smartphones, it has so much more to it. So we tried to pick out all these aspects, and that is how we landed there. So identifying the object can really help you. There is a possibility that you will not be asked open-ended and broad questions. And this was a pretty broad question, I would say. They might ask you, for example, Apple users in India, or you can say any other users that are there in India. So you need to be very specific there. You need to break it down from big to small, and then finally you land onto that crux that you need. So at times you might be tempted to answer the question before even thinking about it. And that can happen because you think that you're running out of time, or you're not able to get the answer at the moment. And that happens a lot. And however, it is important to understand that time is a critical issue. I won't lie to you when it comes to case study interviews. And you should always take your time before you answer any question. You should answer it in your head. You should see if it makes sense to you. And obviously, then that would make sense to the interviewer. So when you're answering these cases, which requires you to ensure that you understand the background and the context of this case, don't ask whether there are any other objective. If you've dumbed it down to your specific objective that you think, then that's it. That's all that you require. The interviewer is not interested in the exact answers, in the right answers, but they want to see how you approach those answers. And that is all about consulting. The way you approach it, if it is the right way, or if you're going the wrong path, then there's no use. That is what they need. That is what they want to see, what the approach you have. So you should try to have suggestions or choices in your mind about different objectives, but do come down to that one specific that might be the important one for the question in hand. Right. So now we can move on to the next slide. So generally in these cases, although I gave you one specific one where you build on to practicing these cases, you have to simply start building it from, you can say, from an economy. Like we talked about smartphones in India, so the Indian economy. Then we move on to the industry-wide specific. For example, if it's smartphones, then application and development industry, and sort like that. And then you move on to a company specific problem. If I told you it's Samsung users, so you move on to that specific company, the user base of that specific company in India. So when you're trying to deal with these specific issues, it does get easier, trust me. So whenever you find yourself in the scenarios, you should eliminate any industry-wide problems, or in case if it's taking you too much time, you might actually want to not take that approach. So if they're not there, then you can dig deeper into the company, or if you're aware of what your strong part is. For example, if you're aware of what Samsung is doing at present, the stock price of Samsung at present, what kind of user base you have, then you need to flaunt that. Whatever specific economy-wide knowledge that you have, industry-wide knowledge that you have, or the company-wide knowledge that you have, you need to bring your strong points into the limelight. You need to showcase it to them, that you know the problem, that you can understand it, and you're capable of solving it. So when you discover this, then you would want to do that. So I think we can move on to the next slide. So we have been talking about breaking it down. So that specific thing is called as segmentation. Segmentation is very critical. So when you particularly want to get into the case of a problem, right, it is good to understand that you cannot use assumptions to try to solve a problem, although they are sometimes helpful, particularly regarding any products or services, something that is relevant to the current situation, then you cannot use any assumptions. Although there are cases that would not require you to understand the current market situation, or if the current market situation is eliminated, then you would need not have any assumptions in place. Then there is a low possibility that the product or customer segments that you understand, they can be affected in the same way, or something that is happening at present that might not be relevant to you. So that is why assumptions are sometimes not included. And we can say the most important part of the segmentation is to make it simple for you. When you try to break down a question into simple parts, you try to understand each and every part, and you give attention to every part. That actually makes up the whole answer. And that is that each part can contribute, can help you maybe aid the answer. Even if some industry that is there, for example, when I was doing my case interviews, I was not very aware of the cement industries or the steel industries. That was not my interest points. I was more interested in banking and retail industry, for example. So that was my pain point. And if I got a question in that, then how would you solve that, right? So you need to bring out what are your experience points, what are your interests, in case a question is posed to you that is not one of your interests, that is something that you're just not aware about, that you're not read recently, and you have not been updated about the current market situation there, then of course you need to apply what you have and showcase it to them. So yeah, and in that manner, you might not be afraid of answering questions if you're not aware of the industry itself. So I think we can move on to the next slide. Yeah. So you've heard all that I wanted to let you know, and let's understand this from a practical perspective. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about it. So you have a client, okay, and I think there's a slide, next slide, right, where we can actually take the question in, please. So Lika, next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So example, you have a client, okay, and that is a commercial bank, and they have faced a decline in their revenue. All right, and how do you analyze that? And for time's sake, let's just say that you have to take only specific points. Although for this specific question, you could actually take a lot of time. There's so much to venture into it. There's so many, you can say, financial ratios that you can take and everything. But definitely, you need to focus on what is required. So you need to ask the interviewer the question. So you can go on by asking, where is your client located? For example, the client is located in Mumbai, or the client is located in Bangalore. So based on that geography, how long have they been facing this problem? So are there any other commercial bank in that area, or competitors that they have? Are they also facing the same situation? And if yes, then what is that situation? Then what is the pain point of that specific company, or what problems have they been facing in the current industry? And that is, even if you don't know about this commercial bank, or even if you have no interest in commercial banks, here you can get the advantage. You can ask the client itself, what is the current problem that they have? What are the pain points that the company has, that their competitors have? And then the client would be obliged to answer your question. I'm sorry, the interviewer would be obliged to answer your question. Sorry. So then you go drill down any specific points that you have taken and you've noted down the questions to it. So loans, for example, let's just say that this commercial banks has loans, a problem with their loans simplification and for the depositors. So you need to know the formula that is there for loans and how loans deposited per persons are affected. If that is what it is, if the client tells you, yes, the loans deposited per person is the problem. Then you go into understand and you go into explain to them why the loans deposited per person decreases. Of course, that you would need to know. In case you don't know, you of course you can guess, but do not make way too wild guesses. If you're not aware of the industry, try not to answer them. Try to keep it to the minimal aspect. Try to keep it on the moderate ground so that you don't seem to be overconfident about things, because that also does not play well. So yeah, sure, we can go on to the next slide. So I do have a question for you, and just the way I tried solving few of the guesstimates on the case studies, maybe you can go ahead and answer this question that you can see on the screen in a similar way, and do let me know what you think of it. Maybe if they can post in the chat, would that be possible, Tulika?
Yeah, they can post on the chat.
Sure.
And yeah.
If you guys are interested, then you can definitely solve it. This is going to be really interesting. And I really want to know what you've actually learned and how can you think of this question in your specific terms. Okay. So Anil has answered that threat from the e-commerce industry and the change in customer behavior. Very good. That is very important, change in customer behavior. But then the customer behavior is also a very large part, is a very wide area. How would you approach what in customer behavior? For example, if I tell you that demand is being affected, the current, due to inflation, the demand is getting affected. How would you go ahead? He can shut down some of the department stores. Of course, that is a very good advice. Sure. But do try asking questions and answering them both. Like you're both asking the question and answering. Increase in expenses and liability. Very good. That's actually a very interesting aspect. I wouldn't have thought of that. Goods and decrease inflation. Sandeep, thank you. That's a great answer. Locations and quality of products. Of course. Great. Research in that area, yes. But again, when you are in that interview, that client requires you to know what is the current situation. So you can always flaunt that, right now, this is the situation. Or so sometime back, I read this article and this was there, and that definitely helps. That shows that you're pretty interested. Increase in online stores. All right. Okay, that's a great answer. Quality of product, yes, we heard that. Customer taste, again, that comes under behavior attributes. That does change. And over the period of time, yeah. Strong processes, price, of course. Great. I think all of you have gotten the crux of it. All of you are ready to be consultants. Marketing, that's great. Wow, I think even I wouldn't have thought of a lot of these that you guys are able to answer. That is pretty great. Great. I'm very glad to know that. Diversification is a very great idea. Yes, that has been happening. That is the current trend. So that does help. Root cause of stores. Absolutely, absolutely. Supply chain issues. Okay, then again, this is a very wide term. When you say supply chain, are you referring to the raw materials? Are you referring to what kind of goods that go in? That's a very wide aspect. You do need to, then you've taken the right path. Supply chain is absolutely perfect. That's the right answer. Then you need to go ahead and ask the client. For example, I'm the client. You can ask me. Then I'll give you some answer. I'll give you some assumptions or something like that. Okay, okay. Thank you for bringing it out, Anil. So Walmart's valuation versus Amazon that you've referred. So many a times you can even bring out any specific case that is happening, that is there in the industry that might be relevant right now. You can even go ahead and try to answer the specific question posed to you by the interviewer. then you can answer it in the similar way that has been happening, for example, for Walmart or for some other, so like Nika or something like that, then you can also answer it in the same way. That does help. Yes, feedback from customers, absolutely. That comes as the most basic part for a departmental store, right? Yeah, great. Anyone else? Any more answers that we've not heard? Any other approach that you have? Yes, customer behavior is most important in this field, right? For example, for a bank, it might be loans, it might be some bad loans that they're having, some assets that have gone bad. Then for this inventory, yes, that's the right way to go ahead. Absolutely. When you're a departmental store, you need to first ask yourself, for example, I am the owner of a department in industry. What is the current situation of my inventory? Then you move on to the customer that, okay, so you solved your own problems and then you understand, okay, what outside party, for example, you're catering to the customers, what they do. Absolutely great. That is pretty good. Pricing strategy, of course. I think all of you are great economists. You're working on price strategy and inventory and all these terms. Actually, these are very relevant to the question. You're all going the right way. That is how you approach these questions. There is no wrong answers here, but yes, when you try to go bit by bit and try to expand your horizon and maybe take it from the entire industry to come to the company strategy, that is sometimes what I would prefer if it is an industry that I'm very well aware about, because we get to hear a lot about what goes on in the industry more than what goes on inside a company. So that is also a great strategy. Fluctuation of market trends and customer taste. Absolutely. Advertising, yes, that is one of the most important aspects for a departmental store. Again, inventory, advertising, what goes on within their, you can say, internal pricing, internal strategy, that is very important. Pretty good, I would say. I think everyone is pretty well aware about it. So I think we can move on to the next slide. I think everyone has answered. So we can say that in order to sum up that in the day of a life of a consultant, what we've been learning, what we've been understanding up till now, you prepare, you do analysis, you do research. Of course, you're not always required to do it on the spot or be a know-it-all, but you do need to go ahead and tell them that I will go ahead and research. And although that is not something that I would be pushing, right? I would not be telling you that you should always say that I would go ahead and research this and get back to you, because while that is a very positive note, but you should be aware of it when you're coming to an interview. So for a consultant, for example, you've landed a job. For a consultant, you would always prepare first. You'll try to understand the facts that are there in person. You'll try to get the questions out of the client, that what is the issue, this, that, everything in place. Then you do the qualitative and the quantitative analysis. Then you identify the opportunities for improvement, right? Answering the questions that are there. So you need to think about the organization strategy, the management system, information system. There's a lot that goes on in a company, right? And that is why there are specific consultants in those areas, as one consultant can't take it on. Then we develop opinions in order to address how do we tell them to improve on a situation, recommendations that you have, and you analyze your own recommendations post that. You prepare reports, you put down your findings and recommendations on paper, then you prepare oral presentations, findings and recommendations, again presentations, Excel sheets, Word document, everything that goes on behind it. Implement plans for them. How do they execute that? Again, advisory services. Then you assess them in specific situation based recommendation that, okay, so for this specific problem in this situation, this would be the answer. Even that would be a very, you can say, a very minute aspect of each and every project. Even you can target that. That shows on that you really care about the client and they really like that. And finally, you would execute, right? You would present it to the client. They would be telling, if they are impressed, then you can go ahead and implement that strategy. They could go ahead and implement that strategy, and you can do that for them even. And you can maintain these client relationship. You provide them proposals for new businesses. They are actually interested in what you did, and they are like, okay, so this consultant is good at what they do, and I want to go ahead and seek help from them later on. So you're building relationships there, and you're selling extensions for your new businesses. And that is all that we've been understanding is what a consultant is. Yeah, we can move on to the next slide. So we finally reached to the end of our discussion. And to sum up, if you are searching for a career that is very interesting and you're trying to find answers to everything, you want to understand, you want to learn more about what all is out there, and it is balanced on both rewards that you're there. Consulting is a well-paid career choice, and challenges that are there, then you can consider joining the consulting industry. And consulting will present you with opportunities in order to utilize your analytical and communication skills. And most interesting is that you will have a chance to work in every industry. You will actually become a know-it-all if you are not a know-it-all right now, but you want to understand, you want to learn more, then actually this career will give you all the knowledge. So next slide, Monica. So we reached the end of our discussion, and you guys can go ahead and ask your doubts in the chat section. In case I've missed anything, again, I'm a human. All of us are humans. We do miss things. So any doubts that you have that I've not answered up till now, please go ahead and post those in the chat section. Sure. I'll drop in my LinkedIn profile so that you can connect. And I would love to hear your opinion. And again, networking is a very important aspect. I think you guys actually learned that right from asking for the LinkedIn profile. I'll do that right away. Here you go. Akansh, right? Sure. I've dropped down my mail. I've dropped down my LinkedIn. And any doubts you have, even if you don't have that right now, you want to ask me later, you have some question that pops up in your head later, then you can go ahead. I completed my BTech and MBA. Okay, so Bola Jagdish, I think I would say that you can go ahead and first try connecting with people from IT and operations consulting. You can ask them what is the current, as I can give you a lot of platforms that are there, right? But that might not help. A lot of people apply on those platforms, and sometimes I would say that for specific jobs, for example, a specific platform for a specific job is a very important aspect. But for example, IT operations or consulting, if I'm not aware of somebody else's, that what is the right platform to apply for, I was right companies to apply for, what gives you the right knowledge, then you need to talk to the persons that are there. You need to go on ahead on for example on LinkedIn and contacting people, and even other platforms that are there. I'm not giving any recommendations, but sure, you can always go ahead and try to network with those people, understand how do you go step by step in applying, what kind of people or referrals do you need, and then I think that would help. When which we don't know. Okay, so there are two parts to this if you don't know the answer. Okay, so I'll give you a realistic example. So there, I interviewed for a cement to steel. I think I already mentioned that, and I did not know a lot. As a student, I was just applying to a lot of places, trying to crack into consulting. So I didn't have a lot of knowledge in that space. I did, but I had a very you can say basic what is the current situation, but not about what has been happening in the industry for maybe 25 years or 50 years or something like that. Right. So I was not aware of that. So I tried to answer, okay, although I would not always recommend that path, but they do like it when you try to provide them with some kind of insight that you have, that you're not giving up. They like it that if you're not giving up, because this is a very, I would not lie to you guys, this is a very, you can say, time bound and very time sensitive and stressful thing. Because if you're not aware of something, you might lose the client, and that reflects badly on your own portfolio. So if you're not aware, do try to pose whatever you do know, and then do let them know that this is all I'm aware of, but I'll definitely go ahead and research more about it and learn more about it. What inspires me the most? I would say that there are different things that even when I came into consulting, I did. Even before coming into consulting, I wanted to make impact into people's lives, and I did have an organization that I launched in my final year, and that inspired me. I think my mother, most of all, I've seen her working very hard, uh, even when she's not required to do so, and all that for her own knowledge and understanding. So that really inspired me. Things that you don't have to do for any specific purpose, but you're doing it for your overall development. So I think that inspired me. How to prepare for any specific type of financial consulting. Okay, so I've answered that you need to have either an MBA degree, or you need to have certifications, or even if you have a bachelor's in economics or commerce, or a BBA or something like that, that's something that you've been learning to. For example, I gave you a lot of questions on economy wide or industry wide. So I was an economics student, right? So I tried to understand the pricing strategy, customer behavior. We had all these subjects in place. So that really did help me. So these are some of the things that you can pursue and you can understand. And there are a lot of certifications, credible financial certifications. I would say go ahead with that. Again, I would not be recommending anything, but there are always the right people to network with on that. As for finance, I would say there are a lot of certifications by the National Stock Exchange and the CBSE and everything. They have a lot of it within India itself, and even for you can say an overall perspective, Coursera has a lot of certifications. Companies itself, Ernst and Young and PwC, Big Four, and other companies do have their own certifications that help you a lot in getting the practical knowledge that you need. You can go and definitely pay minimal fees and learn what you need in order to shape your career. So how to be an HR consultant? Again, as I'd answered to Jagdish's answers, that for an IT or operations consulting, you would need to be networking with the right kind of people, networking with the right seniors that you have in college, or the someone who has taken the right path. And if you're not able to network with these people, then seek help and assistance from websites that do help you to network with the people. Do search, do a basic Google search, and you can definitely move on ahead to the people that are experts in this field, those that can help you in being, for example, an HR consultant. I hope that answers. Any other questions? I think that's about it, Talika. Any other question that they have, they might even contact me later or let me know. That might not pop up right now. Because in consulting, learn this, you should always have a lot of questions. And even if you don't, try to come up with them later, but do not hesitate to ask questions. Ask as many questions as you want. Get your questions and doubts cleared, and that would actually help you in getting to the right points. What are the key points recruiters notice in a resume? So for consulting, for example, if you have been in a consulting internship, or if you won some case study competitions that are there, very interesting case study competitions that are there, if you've won something, or if your degree is relevant, you always put that into perspective. Put your achievements, you highlight your expertise, through that when you are saying that you won a competition and that you participated in the competition, you were a runner up, or even if you didn't win but you were part of some consulting club, for example, and you were the head of it or something like that. So then they do reflect upon that, then they know that you're aware of what goes on inside the industry, you do have some knowledge of it. As freshers they would not expect you to be a full-fledged consultant, but yes, problem solving, analytical skills, these would show when you show that you've been part of something, you won something, or you had a degree in this, you had a certification in this. So do try to highlight those points. You may have a lot of things in your plate, you may have a lot of achievements that you have, but specific to this industry you try to pinpoint on. All right,
Thank you everyone for attending.
thank you everyone, have a nice evening.